It's trade deadline day, and the Dodgers made no trades on Monday and didn't play on Monday. So there was not a lot going on. There was some rumors, but we put out a call for questions, and we're going to talk about those questions in regards to some of the rumors that came out on Monday. That's what's on tap, so make sure to keep it locked on Dodgers.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yo, Dodger fans. Welcome to Locked On Dodgers. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 local sports daily podcast network. Locked On, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. This is the daily podcast covering the Los Angeles Dodgers, bringing you the smart fans' perspective on our boys in blue. You can find us wherever you find podcasts and on YouTube if you just search for Locked On Dodgers. And you can become a part of the Everydayers, the exclusive club of people that listen to Locked On Dodgers every day, by listening every single day and making it easier on yourself by subscribing wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube and get notified when our episodes are up. If this is your first time listening or watching, I'm Vince Samperio, joined by my co-host, Justin Snider. We're both lifelong Dodger fans that have watched a lot of Dodger games, have covered the team, have been in the press box, been in the locker room, been at Dodger Stadium a lot of times, and, just generally been involved with the Dodgers as part of our life for a long time now. And we are here to bring you what we think is smart fans' perspective on our boys in blue, and that's what we're here to do today. Like I mentioned in the intro, the Dodgers did not make any trades on Monday. There was a few more links and rumors and thoughts about some deals that could happen. The trade deadline is today, Tuesday, at 3 p.m. Pacific time, although some trades could trickle in a little bit after that. But there was some amount of trades in Major League Baseball, just none involving the Dodgers directly. A few names that the Dodgers have either been linked to or people may have wanted: Aaron Savali from the Guardians, Paul Sewald of the Mariners, Mark Canha of the Mets, Jaimer Candelario of the Nationals. Not someone we were linked to, but AJ Pollock is on the Giants now, so the Dodgers will see AJ Pollock at some point this season. But yeah, Jeff, nothing in Dodgerland in terms of actual trades, but I would imagine maybe by the time this episode drops, it might be a little bit irrelevant too.
Yeah, you never can tell. In fact, it's only 9:21 p.m. California time right now on Monday when we're recording this, which means we may not even be right about saying the Dodgers didn't make any trades on Monday, because that's the nature of the trade deadline. We hold off as long as we can to record this episode, and got a balance between having it ready for people's commute to work in the morning, but also getting as much news as possible. But yeah, it may just be the calm before the storm. There's a lot. I feel like we've had more trade activity prior to deadline day this year in Major League Baseball than we do a lot of years. It seems like things have been. It seems like a lot of years they wait until the day of, and this year stuff has started happening sooner. And so we'll see if any of the big shoes drop on Tuesday, or if the shoes have been dropping all along and there isn't one big push. I would guess, though, that we're going to see a lot of stuff going on, including another trade or two from the Dodgers.
Yeah, a lot of the reporters, are still pushing that. The Tigers have two pitchers, Eduardo Rodriguez and Michael Lorenzen. Justin Verlander's name obviously has been thrown around a lot. There's been, other guys that have been mentioned that are still available for trade. So the trade deadline, there's usually a lot of trades that go down on the actual deadline day anyways. So I would imagine that's not going to change this year. But for today's question, like, we put out a call for questions. We got some similar ones, but Justin Verlander is obviously the big topic, so we'll talk about him. We got a question from at Red Sox Junkie 75 asking if the Dodgers should go after Verlander, which we talked a little bit about yesterday, but the answer is still yes. In that realm, we have a question about Verlander from at the Grizzly Bear Zero asking the chances if the Dodgers get Verlander. Would they also get a bat? If so, who and what would make sense? I guess those are only two on Verlander specifically. But with that note of the bat, Dave Vassay was talking on Dodger Talk or whatever it's called on the off days, if it's not Dodger Talk, and did say that Tommy Pham has been speaking to some of the Dodger players and said he would be interested in playing for the Dodgers. So it's another name that it would be available.
Yeah, baseball is so weird. Like you get situations where, you know, in 2018, Manny Machado against David Price, and we were rooting for Machado. And then last year, suddenly we're rooting for Price in that situation. Imagine the Dodgers playing the Giants this year and having to be on Tommy Pham's side over Jock Peterson's. It would be weird. You know, Tommy Pham brings a lot to the table as far as being a player. He's having one of his best offensive seasons, definitely his best offensive season in several years this year. He's a right-handed bat. You know, he can play solid defense in the outfield. It would be interesting. Not great defense, but solid defense. And you know, Tommy Pham being linked to the Dodgers, it's like, would he undo one of the moves they already made? Like, there's not really room for the guys they've already acquired and Tommy Pham. Is there? Like, at some point you have too many guys who are just right-handers who just face left-handers. And I don't know if that would undo. Obviously it would definitely reduce the chances of some of the prospects, you know, Vargas, Bush, those guys getting called up if they kept all those guys. But I don't know. Like we already talked about how Chris Taylor is maybe getting ready to be redundant with Kike and Rosario and Mookie's positional flexibility and all that. Tommy Pham kind of covers the outfield part of Chris Taylor's job. In addition to, you know, they've also said that Rosario is going to play outfield. Obviously, Kike can play outfield. It's I'm torn between being a little bit underwhelmed with the moves they made so far, but also they've made those moves, and so are you just going to undo those and say, "Oh, well, we were just kidding. We didn't really want Kike," you know, or you know, whoever it is. I don't know. It's a weird situation, isn't it?
I mean, the Dodgers haven't really been connected to Pham in a few days anyway, like in terms of actual connections. I'm sure if I was Tommy Pham, I would text a few guys on teams that are going to make the playoffs and say, "Oh, I'd love to be on your guys' team." So, you know, who knows the nature of that? Yeah, obviously, someone would maybe be going back in that type deal, or somebody being used in another deal if that was the case, or you know, JD Martinez, the hamstring is worse off than they thought, and like kind of how we mentioned last night, and maybe they need to look forward to, you know, bringing somebody else in that case. So I think that's the only way that case works. In terms of Verlander, some of the what's been reported, so the Dodgers still involved, the Astros are involved, the Orioles have been named, maybe not so much involved, just that they match up a little bit because they have a lot of prospects. The last report that I remember seeing was from Ken Rosenthal saying that Verlander's preferred outcome would seem to be the Astros because of his relationship with the owner, Jim Crane, over there. It seems to be an issue. The sticking point of some of the deals seems to be Verlander's option for 2025. So there's still a lot going on there. I would imagine the Dodgers will still be in the thick of it. And yeah, the Dodgers should still want him. They should still go after him. And at this point, it's just going to be a matter of the Astros don't have the prospects, but so would have to take on the money in that sense, whereas the Dodgers could do a combination or either or, whatever the case. So it'll be interesting to see how these last few hours play out.
Yeah, and with Steve Cohen, what we know about him based on how he's behaved is that he doesn't care so much about the money. He wants to build that farm system. And so obviously Verlander has some say because he has a no trade clause. But if the options are, they tell him, "Look, Justin, we're trading you to the Dodgers, or you're staying here. Do you want to play in the postseason this year or not?" You know, if the Dodgers have a better package to offer for him, I think they could still get it done. It's hard to see. I don't know. Like, I don't think the Mets and Verlander have like a Dodgers Kershaw type of relationship where they will just bow to his whims and say, "Okay, oh, you'd rather go to Houston? Okay, we'll take a lesser package for that just to make you happy." So, I think the Dodgers are definitely in the running there.
Yeah. Maybe we'll talk a little bit more Verlander in the sense of some of these other questions coming up, some about Andrew Friedman specifically. So that's what's coming up. So let's keep it locked on Dodgers. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Buying tickets to your favorite events shouldn't be stressful, and it doesn't have to be with the Gametime app because it's the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all sports, music, comedy, and theater near you. With killer deals on last-minute tickets and their best price guarantee, you can stop stressing over the tickets and start getting hyped. The Dodgers have a lot of good giveaways here the last 2 months of the season, and you're going to want to be at Dodger Stadium for some of those in order to make sure you secure bobbleheads or the rings or whatever else they're giving out these last couple months. And Gametime is that place for it. You don't have to plan months in advance. You can just buy them the same day. And they have really been there this season in terms of having some of the best in terms of having the best prices and best value for tickets, especially day of game. And if they don't, the Gametime guarantee is there for you, because with the Gametime guarantee, you always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. So not only will they pay you back, but they'll give you a little bit extra for you to buy a Dodger dog or something like that. So go get the Gametime app right now and snag the tickets without the stress. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, low price guaranteed. All right, Jeff, let's you got any more to add on Verlander before we get into these next batch of questions?
The only other Verlander adjacent thing was the rumor about Mitch Keller of the Pirates. Is on the starting pitching front. We didn't have any questions specifically about Keller, but the Pirates are at least open to the possibility of trading Keller. Obviously, it would take more of a haul of prospects to get Keller than it would to get Verlander. But he also makes a lot less money, and so it wouldn't hamper their future if they are. We talked yesterday about how getting Verlander could affect their chase of Ohtani this offseason. For example, Keller wouldn't affect that the same way that Verlander would. I don't think Keller is quite as good as Verlander, but also Keller is a lot younger than Verlander, and so maybe a better bet to be good 2 years from now when he's still under contract, like they both would be, or both could be. And so, since it's just prospects, and the Dodgers, they have a lot of prospects available, especially since we know the Pirates are open to the idea of trading David Bednar too. Like, do you just throw the farm, like the 6 solid but not top prospects, of varying degrees at the Pirates for Keller and Bednar?
Yeah, with Bednar, it makes it more intriguing. If it's just for Keller, he's good, but it's kind of hard because, like, we've talked a lot about the roster crunch coming at the end. First of all, the Dodgers organization in general has to cut down on how many minor leaguers they have because of the new rules. And then plus on top of that, they're going to have to cut down or trade some guys or leave some guys open to being available in the Rule 5 draft, because they got, I want to say they're almost in double digits of guys that will be eligible for Rule 5 draft, and they don't have that many spots left on the 40-man roster. So if it comes down to that, where it's a bunch of those types of guys and you get Keller and Bednar, then yeah, it would make a lot of sense, and probably something that, we've talked about the exorbitant prices and everything, but I don't think we've seen anyone like crazy overpay so far this trade deadline, especially for pitching. I think it's been maybe higher than expected, but it's nothing to be like, oh my God, they paid so much, or they dealt these guys for this. So the Dodgers could benefit from using that depth and some of the necessity of some of these guys having to be off the roster anyways.
And they have so much depth that it doesn't even have to be either or. They could get Verlander and Keller. Go get them.
That's true. If that happened, I think some of these answers would be a little bit different to these next couple of questions. So we'll start off with one from @Kevin DeBro. He says he knows Friedman takes his time making moves, but do you think other teams are blocking him from making moves already?
I guess part of it depends on what you mean by blocking him. I don't think any team is making moves so that Andrew Friedman can't. And I don't even necessarily think, obviously some guys have been traded who the Dodgers had shown some interest in. But I don't think there's been any trades that have happened so far that Andrew Friedman is kicking himself. Man, I really wanted that guy. The guys who Friedman really wants, whether it's Verlander or whoever, are still on the table. And so there are people, like we talked about in the first segment, there are people who Dodger fans wanted the Dodgers to get or had showed some interest in. But I don't think that I don't think there's anybody that Andrew Friedman is going to lose sleep over yet.
Yeah, if you see a trade and it's for something the Dodgers could use or need, and you think, oh, why didn't the Dodgers just beat that? It's probably for a reason. I don't think it's because of the Dodgers, couldn't beat that offer. I think it's just because, Andrew Friedman didn't want to.
Yeah. Let's stick with people named Kevin, but a different Kevin. Our buddy Kevin at Blue Goon 82. And he says, I'm a huge fan of Andrew Friedman, and I still am. However, has this year's roster and its many holes dropped your trust level with him? I went from 99% trust to about 85% due to moves like not keeping Bellinger, not upgrading the pen in the offseason, continuing to roster Barnes and play Rojas, etc. And I just want to, we like Kevin. Kevin is a loyal listener. He's a fan of our show. We're fans of Kevin. So don't take this the wrong way, Kevin, but I'm pulling some receipts, bro. Talking about Andrew Friedman not keeping Bellinger. Back in last year, somebody tweeted out August 27th of last year, Josh Thomas tweeted out James Outman's AAA stats. And our buddy Kevin at Blue Goon 82 said, oh, he's Cody's replacement. Cheaper, probably just as good. And Josh said pretty much, Billy certainly didn't lack opportunities to work out. And Kevin said, I think the people who still want Cody are still hoping for the elite Cody that will never appear for a full season again, or just big time Cody Bellinger fans. Things like that. And Kevin, I bring this up not to say that you were wrong, but that is what we all thought. The fact that Cody Bellinger's had a good season, nobody's shocked that Bellinger had a good season, but none of us would have bet money on him having a good season. And Andrew Friedman didn't either. And Friedman, in fact, I think Friedman was willing to pay Cody $15 million to bring him back this year. And I think a lot of Dodger fans, if they'd done that, would have said, he's not worth $15 million. Go get somebody cheaper. You got James Outman who's cheaper, and they'd be eating their words right now if Cody was having the season he's having. And so I haven't lost any trust in Friedman over Bellinger. And even Barnes is a backup catcher. Yeah, I do wish the Dodgers had a better backup catcher, but there's only so much impact that a backup catcher has. And, Barnes is a team leader, blah, 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 all that stuff. I wish things are different, but I don't think that it is enough to make me lose faith in a general manager. Miguel Rojas plays excellent defense, has that leadership thing. He's hit well at times this year. So all that stuff, like not upgrading the pen, the Dodgers have good relievers, and it's hard to say who they should have got in the offseason that would have made the bullpen better this year. A lot of their good relievers have underperformed at times this year, but overall, we've seen lately the potential this bullpen has. So all that stuff adds up to me thinking, yeah, I'm okay with, and nothing Friedman's done this year has made me drop from 99 to 85% trust in him.
Yeah, it's just everything's easy to second guess because coming into the season, and maybe, other people didn't feel this way, but we felt that the pitching was going to be the strength, especially the bullpen, and the offense was maybe going to be, where it struggled, and it's been the opposite so far. And that's partially the starting rotations, partially due to a lot of injuries. The bullpen is due to guys not being as good as they have last year or adjusting to the pitch, whatever the case is. They're starting to settle in now. We're starting to see that bullpen that we thought they were going to have earlier on. And, even with a couple of mishaps here the last week or so, that's still starting to bear itself true. The offense, they signed, JD Martinez was probably one of the best signings, of the offseason for not just the Dodgers, but a lot of different teams. Noah Syndergaard didn't work out. So I don't have a drop level of trust in him because we don't know what the plan, we don't know, was this year a year to just kind of, hey, let's see if Miguel Vargas and some of these young guys work out. And then if not, we make a push next year for Ohtani or whoever else is, free agent or a big trade or whatever the case is. I don't know what, obviously the goal is to win the World Series. We know that. The goal is to make the playoffs, goals to win the division. We know those goals, but we don't know the long-term goals of what they're actually going after. And it's hard for me to complain when so much has gone wrong and the Dodgers still in first place. No other team can lose as much as the Dodgers have lost and still be in first place. I think.
Yeah. And yeah, you brought up one other point that I meant to mention. We've talked before about how bad teams have the benefit of playing their young players and say, hey, you know what? We're not going anywhere. So come on up. And that's how you rebuild. And the Dodgers have had to consistently do that in the moment. And sometimes it works immediately, like with Corey Seager. And sometimes it works eventually, like with Gavin Lux. And sometimes it doesn't work, like with, name any of the rookies who played for the Dodgers in 2021, but this year they happened to be thrown in a situation for a couple different reasons where you've got Outman and Vargas starting on offense. You've had so many rookie pitchers thrown in the rotation because of injuries, all that stuff. Like, it's kind of the nature of the beast. Trying to be a great team that is sustainably great is not easy to do. And if anything, the fact that the Dodgers are in first place right now gives me even more trust in the people making the decisions for this team.
Yeah. We got another Friedman question and a few other questions. Real quick, just want to say thanks for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen, and keep it Locked On Dodgers. Remember, if you can't watch the Dodger game, but you still want to be a part of it and listen, SiriusXM or the SXM app will have the home broadcast for every Dodger game. All you got to do is search Dodgers and become an everydayer of this podcast by listening to this podcast every day. Locked On Dodgers, wherever you get podcasts, and on YouTube. All right, there's one more Friedman question from Gorilla Golf in 1987. If the Dodgers do nothing else, what grade would you give this trade deadline? He's trending toward a B- unless these moves pan out beyond expectations.
Yeah, B- feels pretty close. I mean, the Dodgers definitely addressed one big need, which is starting pitching innings. Getting Lance Lynn. We have no idea how good the innings will be, but we have a pretty good idea that he's going to give them 6 innings most of the time that he takes the mound. And that's a big deal for this team in particular. And if he can give them 6 innings and 4 runs, they have a pretty good chance to win all those games and be in good shape for the next game because the bullpen's not burned out. So the biggest need they've addressed. Now, they haven't fully addressed it because starting pitching in October is also part of the need, and Lance Lynn doesn't necessarily address that. Offensively, they didn't have any big holes, but their one weakness was hitting against left-handed pitching, and they added 2 guys who can theoretically do that. They added Joe Kelly in the bullpen. So, yeah, I mean, as far as if the Dodgers didn't have such high expectations, they weren't, if the Dodgers weren't supposed to be World Series contenders every year, this would be an example of a good, solid trade deadline for a general manager filling holes with bit players.
Yeah, I'll agree there, and that way we can move on to these other questions.
Okay. Let's go. Speaking of the pitching rotation, let's go back to another one from Kevin at Blue Goon 82. The rotation is an obvious weak part of this team, and obtaining any upgrades appears to be difficult without an overpay. Can you think of a recent Dodger rotation that's weaker than the one we're currently using? This rotation is dreadful.
Yeah, I mean, the rotation is pretty not good. We're not used to the Dodgers struggling with starting pitching. We're used to them struggling with the bullpen. And this year, it's obviously been a little bit of both. But yeah, it's hard to think of it this bad because for like the last 10 years or, even in the Friedman era, the Dodgers have always had one of Clayton Kershaw and somebody, even when Kershaw wasn't in the rotation, like they still had Greinke for a few years. And then when they didn't have Kershaw, they had Buehler, whatever the case. So they've always had Kershaw and somebody else. This year, they don't have that and somebody else right now. So that's what, makes it a little bit weaker in general. But I do remember, I don't remember overall rotation being this bad, but there has been years where they've gone into the playoffs and you don't necessarily know who exactly you can count on. Like even the years like when Hyun-Jin Ryu was really good, he wasn't a guy you could count on really in the playoffs because he wasn't that big of a strikeout guy. And we know that strikeouts play up a little bit more in October. So yes, overall, I don't remember rotation as bad. That has been in the last like 10 years of when I've really been into it, watching every single game and being and the analyzing and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and the Dodgers, I mean, throughout their history, are known for being a pitching factory, and so pitching has been the hallmark of the Dodgers for all of my life and all of my dad's life, and so I'd say even longer than 10 years. This is the worst starting rotation, worst performance they've gotten from the starting rotation, and it doesn't mean that they're bad pitchers. There's a lot of potential there, and I think several of the guys in this rotation could be big parts of the next great Dodgers rotation. But just, getting thrown into the big leagues on the fly when maybe you're not totally ready and, having to take those lumps and learn how to pitch in the big leagues at the big league level, it's created some challenges. And I think overall it will be beneficial because I think all of this experience that Bobby Miller and Emmett Sheehan are getting in the big leagues will make them better next year. They will be better next year than they would have been if they weren't taken these lumps right now. But yeah, it's pretty rough right now.
Yeah. We got one question. That's the easy answer from Tim at Dodgers Rules 1. Do you think the Dodgers will make more than one move before tomorrow deadline? I think they'll make at least one move.
So yeah, I think more than one
is more than one's easy. This one is from Mothman is back at Say It Like They M1. Talking about the injuries that are becoming unsustainable every year. Looking at FanGraphs, we're usually averaging 40 plus players ending up on the IL every year. At one point, do we need to reevaluate and change strength and conditioning coaches?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, and I'd have to dig into the whole numbers. I would guess the Dodgers aren't crazy out of the ordinary overall. If you look at a rolling, 3 or 5 year time period, I do think that they've been hit really hard this year. But I think starting pitching overall has been hit pretty hard this year by the injury bug. And so I would guess that it's more of a function of the new rules and the nature of baseball and the fact that one of the Dodgers business models, maybe not as much lately, but they've always been more willing to take a risk on injury prone guys, and even with, back when they re-signed Rich Hill after they traded for him, then they re-signed him. And basically their plan was, we want to get 20-ish starts out of him. We know he'll be hurt part of the year. And so we're paying him for 20 starts and hoping he's really good for those. Clayton Kershaw is basically on the same model right now. He took a $20 million contract because everybody involved knew it was unlikely he was going to make 32 starts. And so the Dodgers, because of their financial might, are in a position to be able to sign guys to deals like that, sign guys who are higher injury risks, knowing that the other half of the risk reward equation is potential reward, and the Dodgers are willing to take that risk.
Yeah, I don't know if there's even, because like you've seen other sports and baseball and other sports where they get rid of the strength and conditioning staff after a bunch of injuries, and I don't even know if it's ever really worked out to the extent that that people may think. It may be just a matter of, okay, let's try something different. But when it comes to the pitching, Walker Buehler having another Tommy John, I don't think that's something that could have been aided by a different strength and conditioning coach, unless they had, the Dodgers already employ or send guys to Driveline where they're supposed to do all this type of, data and stuff and everything else to try and help that. I don't know if there's a way to avoid that. Same with Dustin May. These guys just throw hard, and, sometimes that's a matter of what it is. And then the other parts that when guys are on the injured list is the Dodgers are more likely to put you on the IL, faster than maybe some other teams because they have the depth to be able to bring someone up in that meantime.
The depth and the need to put your best team on the field at all times. Buehler's actually a great example of what I was talking about on the draft side of things. Dodgers got Buehler because they took the risk. They drafted him knowing that he needed Tommy John surgery, whereas he had dropped farther down. Walker Buehler was a top 10 pick talent that the Dodgers got at whatever it was, pick 29 or whatever, because he was injured. And they have reaped the rewards of that, but they've also reaped whatever the opposite of rewards is.
Yeah. Carlos, we saved your question from last time. We're going to save it again because we don't know yet. Depending what the Dodgers do and before the trade deadline is when we'll know what they'll need for next season. There's another question real quick from at NXS Kick. Says his daughter's a 15-year-old true lifelong Dodger fan. She said she'll stop supporting the Dodgers if Chris Taylor leaves. What's the possibility on this? I think if Chris Taylor gets traded tomorrow, it's going to be part of a bigger deal where the Dodgers get somebody that's really going to get you excited about the rest of the season. and you'll just have to explain to your daughter that sometimes that happens.
Yeah, if she's going to be a baseball fan long term, she'll have to get used to it. I remember in 1 week back in 20, early 2011, late 2010, I guess, the Dodgers non-tendered Russell Martin, who was my favorite Dodger at the time, and they signed Juan Uribe, who was my least favorite player in baseball at the time, and that definitely put a test to the whole rooting for laundry thing. But there we were. I learned to love Juan Uribe, and Russell Martin eventually came back, and I'm still a Dodger fan. So hopefully your daughter will still love the Dodgers even if they trade Chris Taylor.
Yeah. All right, that's going to do it for today's episode. Thank you for all your questions. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen. If you're hearing this, that means probably nothing happened with the Dodgers before in the next couple hours before the date actually turns to Tuesday. So we'll see what happens there. Remember, you can become an everydayer by listening every day. You can find us wherever you find podcasts and on YouTube if you search Locked On Dodgers. If you want to listen to the home broadcast for any game, you can do it on SiriusXM or the SXM app if you search Dodgers. You can find us on social media, Twitter and Instagram at Locked On Dodgers. Jeff is on Twitter at Snider. I'm at Vincent91. DMs are open on all those accounts if you need to get a hold of us. I think someone told me on Twitter they changed the thing, so I'll have to switch up the Locked On Dodgers DM. You might not be able to message them right now, but we'll fix that. And you can email us if you can't get a hold of us that way, lockedondodgers@gmail.com, or leave us a voicemail or send us a text at 323-863-LOCK. We're every weekday morning, and we hope you'll be here with us. When you get in your car, if you're at home, tell your smart device, play the podcast, Locked On Dodgers. And remember, you don't have to agree. You just have to listen. Have a good one.
We'll talk to you tomorrow.